I have the great fortune of introducing tonight the recipient of the Social Responsibility Award, which goes to Nina Thomas. So I want to tell you a little bit about the Social Responsibility Award. This award was created to honor a member or members of AGPA who have provided an exceptional act of service that benefits the community at large. And there were so many letters that came forth in support of Nina, and many, many wonderful quotes. And I'm going to read one of them that I think really speaks to her work. Nina's work consistently addresses social justice issues that are too complicated and messy for many in our profession. Yet, as Nina has taught us, this is the necessary place for truly ethical and socially responsible psychological work, as our profession is not only about individuals, but about the social factors driving them: war, poverty, racism, and other forms of structural violence. Nina also focuses on underprivileged groups that are often neglected and denied services, groups like immigrants and refugees. She always seems to courageously hone in on the pressing problems of the moment. Despite all difficulties and professional and institutional resistances in doing so. Through Nina's work, we can see how these pressing social and institutional problems are not merely burdens or obstacles to be shrugged off in our work with individuals, but traumatic resonances at the very core of our shared lived world, the lived world of our clients and ourselves. We welcome you, Nina.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
I'm deeply honored to receive this award. I do have to say that it's perfectly possible that I may either or both dissociate or become tearful. I'm just saying. I've always thought that honors such as this were reserved for the éminence grise of a field. I'm far too self-effacing to think of myself as éminence, and far too vain and pay my colorist far too much to think of myself as grise. So as long as I don't have to alter my self-concept, at least in the latter register, I am deeply touched to accept your acknowledgement of the work I have done over these blah, 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 blah years. I said I was vain. There are several things I want to say in my remarks, starting with my recognition of the support and holding provided by my friends, colleagues, and mentors, and the categories are far from distinct. So to be sure I'm not leaving anyone or anything out, I have a few notes. Thank you, I didn't have to ask you to applaud. There are two people whom I especially want to note. Many of you likely both know and treasure them, as do I. Anne Alonzo and Harold Bernard. Certainly their impact on our organization and our field has been and continues to be considerable. If you didn't have the exceptional good fortune to know them, many of you are here thanks to their generosity. Each had an enormous heart and spirit. Anne was always to me an encouraging voice in the midst particularly of difficult times. In fact, both as I was writing this and as I'm speaking it, I can see her face in front of me. Like many of you, I miss her dearly. And Harold, what can I say about a man who was a consummate foodie, scholar, multiply published author, connoisseur of good wine and a good time. Zoots, he was a man. Shortly after 9/11, Harold asked me to co-chair with Bob Klein of AGPA, AGPA's Disaster Outreach Task Force. Among other things, that gave me the opportunity to work closely with Bob, whom I now treasure as a dear friend and mentor. When Harold invited me, he uttered the sentence that stands up there with, "Trust me, I work for the government, and the check is in the mail." He said, "It won't take much time." It's amazing he could seduce me with that one. Well, after 2 years and more than 300 groups provided by HEPA members around the country to those people who were both directly and indirectly impacted by the 9/11 disaster, I had the experience that was one of the most important of my professional life. And then, somewhat tired, I have to confess, I passed along the responsibility for running the outreach program to Richard Beck and Suzanne Phillips, who continued and still continue the notable work in their consummate fashion. Bob Klein has been there as a true mensch when I was teaching in China in a group training program that Harold had invited me to accompany him. However, Harold was, at the last moment, too ill to participate. Bob was available via email to offer consultation to me in the face of several difficult circumstances. And my experience in China over these years, first with working with Xu Yang, as I continue to do, who is Director of Education at the Shanghai Mental Health Center, enabled me to forge a friendship that is a true delight. Then working in China alongside not only Xu Yang, but Jeff Kleinberg and David Banzer was further demonstration of the power of the group and another highlight of my career, as well as the consequence of the relationships ABPP has enabled me to form. I'm deeply grateful for knowing, working, and learning from each of them. I want to briefly add a plug for a project I'm working on in the hope that I might evoke your own interest in joining me. I've pursued study and clinical work focused on the aftermath of racial conflict, war, and political trauma, as I said, for blah, blah, blah years. First in Bosnia, and then in The Hague at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, in South Africa and Argentina, where I was researching how individuals and societies recover from ethnic violence, war, and political repression. We all know there will never be a National Truth Commission within the United States that is anything like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, Argentina, Brazil, or a score or more of other countries around the world. Yet there has been a Truth Commission in Greensboro, North Carolina, for events during the terrible period of endless racism in that community. It's my hope that I might seed local truth commissions around the US, both to uncover and recover those histories of racial traumas, the legacies of which continue to haunt present generations. A truth commission would serve to redress the burial of histories of those traumatized by racist policies and practices still rife within our society and around the world. It will take considerable effort to move the leaders within small and large communities to undertake the collection of narratives of those who have experienced societal traumas. Even so, I think it's a necessary step to repair the tear in the fabric of our communities. I was recently asked to consult on a documentary being developed of an instance of racial violence in a small town in Arkansas that occurred in the early part of the 19th century, the reverberations of which continue to be felt today. It's described by the majority white population as a riot, by the African American population as a massacre. It's necessary to my mind that that difference in the characterization of events be held in its obvious tension without denying either reality. There's more to this idea than I can describe now, but I mention it because I'd like to invite anyone who finds the prospect of such an undertaking, which could be called tilting at windmills, if it's one you would like to participate in, contribute to, or collaborate with me on, I invite you to contact me. I could use your thoughtfulness and would enjoy the collaboration. As our speaker tonight has noted in the information he shared of the African proverb, I add another. There's a word in the Xhosa language of South Africa, and I don't doubt that I'm mispronouncing the language. The word is Ubuntu. It means a person is a person in the context of other people. That, for me, captures the essence not only of AGPA and of our work, but of our life. And most of all, as well, the intention of this conference. Finally, I want to invite all of you to embrace, along with me, our ignorance. AGPA and this conference afford us the opportunity to do so. May we all enjoy it. Thank you so very much.